paid my dues time after time. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime.
Hello, everyone. This is David 82. I'm doing the final stretch of the Constitution, the main body. I've already done the amendments, their previous podcast, so you can go look those up there. But let's finish up the Constitution. Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to the Constitution, or on the application of legislator of 2/3 of several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents purposes as part of this Constitution. When ratified by legislators of 3/4 of the several states, or by a convention in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by Congress, provided that no amendment which made by prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first through the fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state shall, without consent, shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. The Constitutional Convention of the Sanitation, Constitutional Convention of 1787, has called together to amend the Articles of the Confederation, the existing frame of government that sought to create a union among 13 independent and sovereign states by terms of the Articles of Confederation. Unanimously approved of all the state legislators, was required to amend the major feature of the framing of the government. That provision proved to be fatally flawed, for it soon became apparent that it was impossible to attain unanimity on any matter of consequence. Delegates into the Constitutional Convention have already gone forward, not merely with amendments to the Articles of Confederation, but rather with a decision to scrap the Articles altogether and create a vast strengthening central government. Felt no compunction about changing the formula for amendments, providing two different routes by which the new Constitution could be amended. Amendments can be proposed either by 2/3 vote of the both houses, or when 2/3 of the legislators of the states agree on calling a national convention for the purposes of proposing amendments. Amendments proposed by either method must, in order to become part of the Constitution, receive approval of 3/4 of the state's legislators, or be approved by specifically calling a convention in which at least 3/4 of the states. Most of the amendments to the Constitution have been proposed by Congress and then adopted by 3/4 of the state's legislators. Although the 21st Amendment repealed the prohibition, was adopted by the convention in 3/4 of the states. The amendment process is an arduous one, and for that reason, relatively few amendments have been passed during the more than 200 years since the Constitution was adopted, making it one of the most concise written constitutions in the world. 10 of the amendments, those that we consider to be part of the Bill of Rights, were proposed by the first Congress of the United States and quickly adopted by a necessary number of states within a few years, where after the new government commenced operation during the whole of the 19th century, only 5 amendments were adopted, 3 of them coming in the immediately aftermath of the Civil War, dealing with the rights and newly freed slaves. 12th Amendment were passed in the 20th century. 12 amendments for passing the 26th. Among the most important of those, authorizing federal income tax, giving women constitutional right to vote, providing for direct election of the United States senators, and guaranteeing all American citizens 18 years or older had the right to vote. Article 5 also maintains 3 specific instances which the Constitution is not subject to amendments. The provision prohibits legislation affecting the internal slave trade in 1808, the prohibition against the direct taxation unless apportioned taxation unless apportioned according to the population, and the provision each state equally representation in the United States Senate. Okay, that's the Article 4 or 5. We go to Article 6. You got to realize I'm reading annotations. That's why it seems longer than what's on the screen. All debts, contracted, and engagements entered into for the adoption of the Constitution shall be as valid against the United States as under the Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or law, any state to the contrary notwithstanding. The Senate and representatives before mentioned, and members of several state legislators, and all executive and judicial offices, both of the United States and several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as qualification to any office or any public trust under the United States. Let me read that last sentence again. State as shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Those of you who think that we are founded on Christianity. At the time, annotation. At the time of the Constitution, it created the continental government, that individuals governments of these states, and many private citizens had all accumulated substantial debt obligations. The first of them, Article 6, was designated to ensure the sanctity of those debt obligations. Article 6 contains the so-called Federal Supremacy Clause, the assertion that in cases of conflict between a state law and a federal law, the federal law takes precedence. Over the course of the nation's history, there have been hundreds of cases where the overlapping jurisdiction of states and federal government, for example, in the matter of the regulation of commerce, industry, or environmental policies, have led to lawsuits. In general, although not uniformly, the Federal Supremacy Clause has worked to incline courts to side with the federal government. The final item in Article 6 requires officials in both the state and the federal government to uphold the Constitution of the United States. This term is also only place in the body of the Constitution where religion is explicitly mentioned. Notably, that this sole mention of religion or enforcement, the principles of separation of church and state, decreeing that there shall be no religious test for public office. Article 7. The ratification of the Convention of the United States shall be sufficient for the establishment of the Constitution between the states so ratified the same. Having exceeded their instructions for the Continental Congress by scrapping the Articles of Confederation and drafting a wholly new frame of government, The framers of the Constitution also ignored the provisions in the Article of Confederate requiring a unanimous approval of the state's legislators in order to amend that frame of government. The decision to allow a Constitution to go into operation after the approval of 9 of the 13 states made it much easier to secure ratification of the document. Moreover, the device submitted Moreover, the device submitting the document for consideration by specially called state convention rather than by state legislators, avoiding some of the natural tendencies of state legislators to protect their powers and interests. Most important though, the use of convention to elect directly by the people of the states and called together solely for the purpose of considering a new plan of the union. Significantly, the proposed new government was intended to be government founded on we the people of the United States rather than merely we the states. Done in the Constitution, or done in the Convention by unanimous consent of the states present on the 7th day of September in the year of our Lord 1787, and of the independence of the United States of the American the 12th in witness whereof we have here unto subscribed our names, attested William Jackson, Secretary, G.O. Washington, President, and Deputy from Virginia. There were 41 delegates present in the Assembly room of the Pennsylvania State House on September 7th, 1787. 38 of the delegates in the room signed the completed Constitution with George Mason and Edmund Randolph of Virginia and Eldridge Gerry of Massachusetts refusing to add their assent. A 40-second debate. John Dickinson of Delaware had been suffering from debilitating headaches, from headaches, and went home a few days earlier. But he asked his Delaware colleague, George Reed, to sign the document for him, bringing the total number of signatures to 39. Signatures are Delaware, G.O. Reed, Gunning Bedford Jr., John Dickinson, Richard Bissett, Jacob Brown. Maryland, James McHenry, Dan of St. Thomas, Jennifer, DANL. Carroll. Virginia, John Blair and James Madison Jr. North Carolina, W.M. Blount, Richard Dobbs Spate, Hugh Williamson. South Carolina, that was North Carolina. South Carolina, J. Rutledge, Charleston, Cotsworth, Pickney, Charles Pickney, Pierce Butler. Georgia, William Few, ABR, Baldwin. New Hampshire, John Langdon, and Nicholas Gilman. Massachusetts, Nathan Gotham, Rufus Keene. Connecticut, William Samuel Johnson, Roger Sherman. New York, Alexander Hamilton. New Jersey, William Livingston, David Burley, William Peterson, Jonah Day. That's spelled Jona, period. Pennsylvania, B. Franklin, Thomas Milton, Robert Morris, Geo Bymore, Thomas Fitzsimmons, Jared Ingersoll, James Wilson, Gove, O-U-V, period, Morris. That was the signatures on the Constitution. So that's the Constitution in a nutshell. The amendments were done earlier, and that's the book. I'll post the caption. But yeah, that's the Constitution in a whole. The amendments were done earlier, like I said, and you could see in there they did call out, said there should be no religious test for holding office. which throws out the founded on Christianity. There's another clause in there I got to go back and read, but yeah. So let me know what you like, share, follow. Please subscribe for those who haven't, and hopefully we'll do more of this. I think I've covered almost all the 4 founding documents already. But thank you for your time. Like, share, follow. Please remember you're all loved no matter what. Thank you and goodbye.
We are the champions. No time.